In California's Imperial Valley, something is disappearing. Not slowly, not invisibly. You can see it. Every year, the line recedes. Every year, more lake bottom is exposed. And what's being exposed is poison. The Salton Sea, California's largest lake, was created by accident, a broken canal, an engineering mistake. And for a century, it was a mistake that people learned to live with. They built towns around it. They used it for recreation. They called it California's Riviera. But now the water is leaving. The lake is evaporating, and what remains is something out of a nightmare. One of the most toxic environmental disasters in American history is unfolding in real time, and 650,000 people are breathing it in. To understand the Salton Sea, you have to understand a place that shouldn't exist. In 1905, the Imperial Valley was a desert, complete desert. No water, no life, just sand stretching to the horizon. But beneath the sand, the soil was perfect for farming. Rich, productive, full of minerals that crops loved. All it needed was water. So in 1901, engineers dug a canal, the Imperial Canal. It would bring water from the Colorado River into the valley. Hundreds of miles away, the river was flowing. They would divert it. It would turn the desert into farmland. And it worked. By 1904, thousands of acres were being irrigated. Crops were growing. Cotton fields, date palm groves, lettuce, carrots. The desert was blooming. The transformation was complete. Where there had been nothing, now there was abundance. Then the canal broke. The Colorado River rose with spring flooding and broke through the canal wall. Water that was supposed to flow in a controlled channel suddenly just flowed. It flowed into the valley, into the low-lying areas. It pooled. It formed a lake where no lake should be. They tried to fix the canal. It broke again, and again. For years, the water kept coming. They kept trying to seal it. Engineers arrived from the government. They brought equipment. They tried dikes. They tried concrete. They tried filling the break with boulders. Nothing worked. The sheer volume of water was too much. By 1907, they finally got it under control. The canal was sealed. The water stopped flowing. But by then, something was undone that couldn't be put back together. A lake existed where no lake should be. An accidental lake. The water continued to flow in from irrigation returns. The water that farmers ran through their fields and didn't use. The water that drained back into the low areas, and the lake stayed. It filled to about 40 feet deep. It covered about 400 square miles, nearly as large as the state of Delaware. And over time, people came to accept it. They built towns, Salton Sea Beach, Desert Shores, Bombay Beach. They put in marinas and fishing docks. They called it California's Riviera. In the 1960s, it was a destination. 2 million people came from Los Angeles every year to spend weekends there. Boaters, fishermen, families looking for a getaway from the city heat. Then something changed. The water from the Colorado River that fed the lake, through irrigation returns and direct allocation, started to decrease. California was growing. More people needed more water. More cities meant more demand. Los Angeles needed water. San Diego needed water. The allocations to agriculture went down. The water that was supposed to flow into the Salton Sea got diverted. Aqueducts carried it north to Los Angeles, south to San Diego, east to Las Vegas. And when the water inflow decreased, something that nobody had really thought about started to happen. The lake began to evaporate. Picture a bathtub. If you're adding water from a faucet and water is leaving through a drain, the level stays stable. But if you cut the faucet flow and the drain stays open, the level drops. Now, the Salton Sea doesn't have a drain, but it has the California sun, the desert heat. In the summer, temperatures hit 120 degrees. The water evaporates, just vanishes into the air. If the inflow drops below the evaporation rate, the level falls, and it has been falling. Since 1998, the Salton Sea's elevation has dropped by more than 9 feet. 9 feet. The lake is 60 miles long and 30 miles wide. That's a surface area of about 1,800 square miles. 9 feet of water across that area is a massive volume, nearly 150 million acre-feet gone. Replaced by what? As the water recedes, the lakebed, the floor, gets exposed. And what's on that floor is something the engineers who built the irrigation system never thought about when they created this accidental lake. The floor of the Salton Sea is covered in salt. When water evaporates, salt doesn't evaporate. It stays behind. Salt from the Colorado River water, salt from the soil, salt from decades of agricultural runoff flowing in from the farms. The lake is slowly becoming a giant salt flat. But that's not the worst part. Mixed with that salt is everything that has flowed into the lake for 100 years. Pesticides from farms, selenium from the soil, an element that concentrates in the food chain and causes birth defects in birds and fish. Chromium, arsenic, mercury, lead. All the heavy metals and toxic substances that agriculture uses or creates. They flowed into the irrigation canal system. Some of it was used by plants. Some of it ended up in the water that drained back into the lake. Over 100 years, it accumulated, it concentrated, and when the water leaves, it concentrates even more. The remaining water becomes increasingly toxic. Now, as the lake shrinks, that toxic lakebed is being exposed to the air. In spring, when the wind blows, and the Imperial Valley wind blows hard, sometimes exceeding 30 miles per hour, that dust gets picked up. It becomes an aerosol. It becomes something that people can breathe. Tiny particles so small, your lungs can't filter them out. The Imperial Valley is home to 650,000 people. Most of them are in the Coachella Valley, around Palm Springs. Some live near the Salton Sea itself, in those towns that used to be vacation destinations. Their property values have plummeted, their communities have declined, and many of them are downwind of the lake. When the dust blows, it travels east. It reaches the communities. It fills the air. It fills lungs. The particulate matter, the dust particles so small you can't see them individually, but together they form a visible haze, is called PM 2.5. It's measured in micrograms per cubic meter. In winter, when there's no local dust, the ambient level in the Imperial Valley is about 15 micrograms per cubic meter. The EPA standard is 35. You want to be below that. But when the dust season comes, when the Salton Sea winds blow, when the exposed lakebed is at its maximum, the PM 2.5 levels spike, 200, 300, in the worst days, over 1,000. The entire valley becomes hazardous to breathe. It's not a policy debate or an abstract data point anymore. It's visible. It's in your throat. It's in your lungs. Children with asthma have attacks. Elderly people with COPD can't leave their homes. Visibility drops to a quarter mile. People wear N95 masks just to walk outside. If that just blew your mind, every subscriber is automatically entered in our monthly giveaway for a branded hoodie. Details in the description. The health consequences are staggering. In the communities around the Salton Sea, asthma rates are 3 times the California state average. 3 times. Bronchitis is common. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, rates are elevated by 50% compared to the rest of the state. Children are more likely to have respiratory problems. They're more likely to miss school days due to breathing issues. People die from respiratory complications at higher rates than the rest of the state. The air quality data doesn't lie. The medical data doesn't lie. Hospital admissions spike in dust season. The dust is killing people, slowly, year by year. But here's the part that makes this truly an American tragedy. The people breathing the dust are predominantly Latino. They're predominantly low income. They're people who didn't have a choice about where to live. They're people for whom moving away isn't an option. They don't have the wealth. They don't have the job connections elsewhere. They're farm workers and their families. Service workers. People working in the industries that agriculture supports. They are breathing poison because 650,000 people live downwind from what used to be a lake, and water from that lake was needed for agriculture to continue in California. They are breathing poison because of decisions made 100 years ago. They are breathing poison because the system that feeds California's produce depends on their sacrifice. The Salton Sea Management Program is California's attempt to deal with this disaster. In 2015, the state allocated $383 million to manage the crisis. The idea: cover some of the toxic lakebed with water. Keep it wet so the dust can't blow. They're creating shallow water habitats. They're hoping to stabilize the lake at a certain elevation. They're trying to keep it from evaporating completely. But $383 million for 650,000 people in a crisis this scale? That's about $600 per person. To restore an ecosystem, to prevent a public health disaster, to stop toxic dust from poisoning 650,000 people? $600 per person per year is nothing. The program is designed to cover 3% of the lakebed. 3%. When the lake was 60 miles long, when the problem is that massive, covering 3% doesn't solve anything. It barely scratches the surface. What it does is buy time. It keeps the worst-case scenario from happening immediately. But the fundamental problem remains. The lake is losing water. The water is not coming back. The dust will blow. The strategy is not restoration. The strategy is managed decline. So what does the timeline actually look like? What happens if nothing changes? The Salton Sea's elevation is currently about 126 feet below sea level. If the current trajectory continues, if water inputs stay reduced, and evaporation continues at current rates, the lake will shrink significantly over the next 30 years. By 2050, if nothing changes, the lake could be half its current size. By 2080, if the Colorado River allocations to agriculture decrease further, it could be even smaller, possibly only a fraction of its current area. Some projections suggest it could become a series of disconnected ponds rather than a single lake. As it shrinks, the toxic lakebed gets larger, exponentially larger. The dust becomes worse. The public health crisis deepens. The state spends more money trying to keep the worst disasters from happening. Other states deal with it. Nevada and Arizona claim some of the dust carries their way in certain wind patterns. The problem becomes regional. It becomes everyone's problem. But the economic calculation is grim. The state of California made a choice. It decided that it was more cost-effective to let 650,000 people breathe toxic dust than to guarantee enough water to keep the Salton Sea fully intact. That's not a scientific decision. That's a policy decision. It reflects a choice about whose health matters less. And the answer, based on the allocation of resources, is clear. The people of the Imperial Valley matter less. The Salton Sea was supposed to be a victory, an accidental lake that became an asset, a blessing from a mistake. And for a few decades, it was. People fished there. They vacationed there. They built communities around it. The economy grew. Tourism came. But the system that created it was unsustainable. The promise of unlimited water, delivered through irrigation, was based on taking water from somewhere else. Eventually, that bill came due. And when it did, the people who paid it were the people least able to move away, the people with the least political power, the people living in the poorest communities, the people whose ancestors had been farming the land for generations. They became the people breathing poison. They became the cost of California's agricultural abundance. The fish die-offs at the Salton Sea tell their own story of ecosystem collapse. In recent years, when the water quality gets bad, when salinity gets too high, when oxygen levels drop, the fish die. Not just a few, thousands, millions sometimes. The water becomes so toxic that the ecosystem collapses. Fish can't survive. The food chain breaks, and then the birds arrive. The Salton Sea is a major stopover for migratory waterfowl. Hundreds of thousands of birds depend on it every year as they journey between their Arctic breeding grounds and wintering areas in Mexico and Central America. These are birds that have been making this migration for thousands of years, following the same routes their ancestors followed. They arrive exhausted from their journey. They need food, they need rest, they need water, and they find a lake that's becoming toxic. The birds eat the dead or dying fish. The toxins accumulate in their bodies. Some birds die immediately. Some survive the immediate toxin exposure, but carry the heavy metals to the next stopover. They carry it to other lakes, other wetlands. They carry it across state lines and national borders. The disaster cascades through the ecosystem. Biologists call the Salton Sea an ecological time bomb. They say it's one of the most threatened lakes on Earth. But the conversation about it has been quiet, because the Salton Sea doesn't have a powerful constituency. Nobody from Los Angeles is depending on it for their vacation home. Nobody from San Francisco is depending on it for their water. The people who live around it are not the people with political power in California. They don't have lobbyists. They don't have media attention. They have dust. What's remarkable is that the disaster is visible. You can see the bathtub ring. You can see the shrinking. You can measure the dust. You can document the health impacts. The science is clear. The solution exists. But the response has been inadequate, underfunded, half-hearted. As if the state is hoping that if it doesn't talk too loudly about it, maybe it will just go away. It won't go away. The lake will shrink. The dust will blow. People will get sick. And somewhere, an engineer or a politician will look at the problem and calculate the cost of solving it. They'll compare it to the cost of doing nothing. They'll choose nothing, because solving it would require a level of commitment that California hasn't been willing to make. Solving it would require acknowledging that the system itself is failing. The Salton Sea is one of several environmental disasters that the American West is facing simultaneously. Lake Powell is dropping. The Colorado River is shrinking. Groundwater is being depleted faster than it's being recharged. Forests are burning at unprecedented rates. The snowpack is declining year by year. Every system that agriculture and cities depend on is under stress. But the Salton Sea stands out because it's the most visible. It's not an abstract data point about groundwater levels or snowpack projections. It's a lake that used to be there. It's a place where people lived. It's something you could have gone to 10 years ago. It's something that's becoming less with every passing year. You can track it. You can measure it. You can see the progress of the disaster. And the solution exists. It's not unsolvable. You could stabilize the lake. You could invest in restoration. You could clean up the contamination. You could protect the 650,000 people breathing the dust. You could restore some of the ecosystem, but it would require a commitment. It would require funds. It would require the state to say, this matters more than some other project. This matters more than some other priority. This matters more than agricultural subsides that enable farming in a desert. That commitment hasn't come. The lake continues to shrink. The bathtub ring gets wider. The dust blows. Asthma rates go up. And another environmental disaster that we can see, that we can measure, that we know how to fix, continues unfixed. Not because we don't understand the problem, but because we've decided that it's cheaper to let it happen. Because we've decided that the health of 650,000 people is worth less than the cost of fixing it. The Salton Sea is evaporating, and with it, the health and the future of 650,000 people are evaporating too. Subscribe for more stories of disaster unfolding in real time and what it means when we can see the crisis but choose not to act.